You are listening to Super Bloom Coach, the podcast for life coaches ready to 10x their business. I'm your host, Moriah Riona, and today I am joined by Christina Edwards. I'm so excited. Christina is a marketing coach for nonprofits. I met her recently at Jamie Berman's Abundance Retreat. She actually sat right next to me and we got to talking throughout the weekend. And I was so amazed at what Christina has been able to accomplish with webinars in her business. And webinars have been on my radar for like 5 to 10 years, and I've been too chicken to do it. So I'm super excited to just chat with Christina today and learn all about webinars. So welcome, Christina. I am so glad that you're here.
I'm so excited. And we love a webinar. So you will love a webinar too after today. Thank you for having me. Yes.
Christina, can you just tell everyone a little bit more about yourself, how you got into this very specific niche, and how you got to where you are today?
I'm the founder of Splendid Consulting, former marketing agency owner. So I had a PR and social media marketing agency previous to that. And that's really where I figured out, okay, I know how to work with big brands. I know how to work with restaurants. I know how to work with e-com, but I picked up a lot of nonprofit clients along the way. And it was like, these are my people / they're doing it the slow, hard way. So when it comes to making more money, fundraising revenue, standing out online, they were doing it the slow, hard way. And so I started working with nonprofits, started my consultancy and coaching. And then from there, 2020 was just this huge invitation to scale up. So that was really when I made the change from driving to my clients to see them to now working with organizations who are truly international. I never know if my client Nancy is going to be literally in the Amazon or if she's going to be in Minnesota, which is so fun on Zoom calls to be like, where are we at today? How's the Wi-Fi today?
So for listeners, if they want to grab like notepad and pen, start jotting down notes, Christina is basically going to take us from not knowing how to do a webinar to like knowing how to sell, set up, tech, all the things. So we're going to dive right in. But Christina, why don't you just, for the listeners, tell us like how amazing webinars have been for you? Why choose webinars? Like, why should we want to do this?
We should want to do this because it gives us freedom. So I used to actually get in my car and like drive to my clients, which makes me giggle because I'm like, what a waste of time. I live in Atlanta. It's just traffic. It's just traffic. And so webinars are such a beautiful way to actually reach so many more people, impact so many more people quickly. I also like the camaraderie or community that can happen. Like I love a fiery chat in a webinar. So there's also that. So you're getting that like real time feedback too of like what your audience likes, what they don't like, what's resonant, what's not. So you're even doing like a little bit of market research. So we love a webinar.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so were webinars a part of your sort of workflow before getting into this very specific niche? Or is it something that you have found now that you're working with the nonprofits and have your own?
It was the requirement to scale for me required webinars. So I was at the point that I was still doing some one-to-many here in Atlanta. I would drive to event spaces and I would teach workshops in person. But at the point that I was ready to scale up and reach more people and have it be much more like, I remember there was a workshop I taught, maybe it was like 2018 or something. And this woman was like, I'm so sorry I'm late. She drove 3 hours to arrive. Like she drove from rural Georgia. There got to be a better way to do this. But webinars didn't start until that time where I was like, all right, we're going to scale this baby up. And I was new to the tech too. So I did it all that we're going to talk about today.
It's actually really funny because you were basically doing webinars. They just weren't recorded and online, right? So you were doing the same format. It was just like a different medium. And it's really funny that you say that because I have recently realized that like all of my really big clients have come out of speaking events that I've done where I'm there educating. Like I'll do these it's basically a webinar, right? But I think it's the tech that's held me back for so long to like take that and put it online. So for those listeners who, I can't imagine there's a ton of them out there, but if they're like, what the heck is a webinar? Can you just like give a real basic overview of like, what is a webinar?
I love this because you get to decide what your version of a webinar is. So I would say most traditionally, you're going to host it on Zoom or some other webinar hosting platform, and you're going to teach a concept. Maybe there is some Q&A or some live coaching during or at the end of the webinar. Typically, there's a pitch or some sort of offer at the end of the webinar. You can have slides. A lot of people like Canva for slides. I do too. But I also love what I will call just a talking head webinar where I'm just teaching and I'm just without anything. I'll look at some physical notes that I have on my screen, but there's nothing. Or we can also do it with like the whiteboard. So you get to like decide. I'm a slide girl. I'm not one. I'm just going to go a little more free here. The choice is yours.
So one of the big things you mentioned when we talked before was that like one of the biggest things to make your webinar successful is actually selling the webinar. So can you talk about that?
It's really, really important, especially now, like post 2020, most everybody knows what a webinar is, or at least knows what like a free training is, a free workshop is, right? They have a sense of it. And there can be a little fatigue around it. So you really want to position your webinar as a great value so that people should show up live. Like, why should I show up live? What is the incentive? And so you want to make sure that they feel like, damn, she should just be charging for this, or I'm going to get a workbook, or I'm going to do a meditation, or there's some sort of, or maybe I can get coached live by this amazing thought leader. So a value to showing up. So it's really important to just really sell the webinar. The fact that it's free, that's not the thing that's selling it. Cause like you and I could Google free stuff, free webinars to the end. Like, why should we join your free webinars? You really want to position that first.
This is really fascinating because I think it's Seth Godin who like really shared this idea about making the free stuff so good. The assumption is the paid stuff is just out of this world. And so I really like that idea. And if you go into your webinar with the mindset of like, this is so good, they should be paying for it, you're elevating what you're giving them. And then you build so much trust that way. So then they know that the paid stuff is really high quality. So can you talk a little bit about how we can sell that webinar? Like what comes to mind for me is like, let's have a really tangible takeaway. Like you're selling like the takeaway. Like by the end of this 60 minutes, you'll know XYZ, or you'll be able to XYZ.
You want to give people a win. And I will say this is like a mistake that I've made is sometimes I'm like, just pouring with ideas. And so I want to give them everything, but the only thing that will do for them is make them feel overwhelmed. So you want to give them a very simple shift or win or something that is like, damn, okay, I feel better, or I learned a thing, or that's a concept I can now weave into my habits, or like whatever it is you offer. So for me, the way that I've had to do that is I may have 50 things that I want to teach them, but how do I drill that down to like one single win that we could focus on for that 60 minutes?
Awesome. And so like the point of the webinar is you're selling something, like for coaches, probably a program or something like that.
Yep. Program. You could be selling one-on-one. You could be selling a workshop, like a paid offer. The point is, yes. And I think one of the mistakes we've seen is, well, there's a couple. One is like the bait and switch webinar where at no point anywhere did it mention that there would be a paid offer. And then you sort of feel like something changed, where suddenly this person is like, now you have a limited time. It feels very salesy. So I like to just talk about what I'm selling through the entire teaching. So there is no surprise. In fact, the webinar is the appetizer. They're like, I love that I got this small win, but like, I want more, or I want more support, or how do I deepen this? Or is there an advanced version of this? And that's when you're like 100%. That's why they know the name of your offer. They know that it's going to be available during this webinar, that it's opening doors to it. Those pieces are like not a secret and not in the last 4 seconds of the webinar, which is very common that people are like, I don't want to do the pitch, so I'm going to leave 2 minutes for it.
It's really interesting because we talk about selling the webinar and we want to have, like we talked about, like that tangible result, the quick win, whatever. So if you know that you're selling like a specific program or a specific course, and they're obviously going to learn some sort of framework or some sort of like thing there, I see a lot of hesitation where they're like, well, I don't want to teach them what's inside the course, or I don't want to give it all away for free.
That's right.
And you're not really saying that, right? Like we don't want to give them what they're going to learn inside the paid things.
One of my webinars that converts really well, I'm teaching them an overview of a method I created, but the questions they have are basically, underneath that? Like, do you have a template for it? A script? What happens when XYZ happens? What if I don't know who to ask first for this? And I'm like, that is all inside my program, those pieces. But top level, I may be sharing case studies. I may be sharing like an initial framework. If I'm just trying to do a little bit more of the education and awareness, I may be opening up just like, did you even know this method exists for you to fundraise for my people? They may be like, damn, I had no idea. So first, I'm kind of even just opening the possibility up.
Like the awareness, which is huge. Because sometimes like, if we talk about this in marketing a lot, where like you have the perfect solution for their problem.
Yes.
But the client might not even know it's a problem yet. So they're not even looking for a solution for that problem. You have to bring awareness that this is even an issue.
So my clients are problem aware and they think that old school stuff is going to be their problem solution. So the way I'm positioning it is, knock it off, stop it, come over here. I don't want to give them everything on the webinar. And I understand that. I've totally felt that before. And the truth is like, you can't in an hour. Everybody has, the brains we have where we just need to be coached and we need help going through the process that you're going to share on the webinar. And that's the value of the coaching is like, I want them to leave better than they came. I want them to leave like with a win, with some sort of clarity and excitement, and then to be like teed up to want more.
Exactly. I love that so much because what we really want to do is, like you said, give them the quick win. So it builds that trust. They're like, oh my gosh, this person taught me something very valuable, but it's a small piece of the puzzle that your larger offer solves. So that's really the way we want to think about it, right? You sell the webinar and then you got to get them to show up, which can be a problem, right?
This is a thing. I mean, it seems kind of like, wait, what? But it's true. So here's what we've seen. We've seen a little bit of a trend that there's the webinar registration rate, the people who sign up online and are like, yep, I want to know, I want to attend. And then there's the webinar show up rate, the people who actually attend at 1 p.m. Eastern at the date and time you set, right? Those can be very different numbers. So I would say I've seen it to be a 20% show up rate. My goal is always 50%. 50% I'm very happy about. I'm celebrating. So that's usually my goal, somewhere around there. So we can normalize first that if your show up rate isn't even close to your registration rate, totally fine. Normal. So a lot of people, including myself, will register for these things and have the intent to watch the replay. And so I may do that. I may register for something. I may register for one of Jamie's trainings and be like, I'm not attending live, but I'll watch that replay. So it's really important to remember just because they didn't show up live doesn't mean it's all for naught. So there's that group. Then there's the group of like just reminding them and again, reminding them of the value of what's coming, sort of having that energy, that excitement, that enthusiasm leading up. And then the other is physical reminders. Like we need physical reminders. I'm thinking like my daughter's pediatrician has like sent me 2 emails. My kid's orthodontist will literally say, it's like almost a countdown timer. They're like, all right, 24 hours till your appointment, 3 hours to your appointment, 2 hours and 1. And I'm like, they clearly had a lot of teenagers, I bet, like not show up. And I don't consider it annoying. I'm just like, I know his appointment's at 7 a.m. We got this. Like, so we really want to remind. Like I say over in the sense that it's probably more than you're doing right now as far as email reminders leading up to the event. There
can be some hesitation because you're like, oh, I don't want to bug them. But you said this really great thing. You were like, you're doing them a favor.
It's a service. Like,
yeah,
it's a service. These reminders are a service. Like I would forget these appointments. And let's think about like webinars I've actually registered for that were free that I thought would be cool. And I only got like 1 or 2 email reminders. Like if I think about my personal inbox right now, it's got a lot of stuff in it. Like I need it to be top of inbox. And so those reminders are for them. It is not you bugging them. It is you being super helpful. So I don't have to go find your name and search it and then find the Zoom link. Instead, it's like, I love a "We Are Live Now" email. So if your email starts at 1 Eastern, send an email that says, I usually send it at like 5 minutes before, "We are live." And then it's the link. We're live. That's it. Here's your link.
It's really interesting because it just speaks to how inundated our inboxes are.
That's right.
Now. And like I've caught myself a few times now because we know like as online marketers, we kind of are very familiar with this formula of like cart open, cart closed for 2 weeks and stuff like that. And there are thought leaders that I followed for a while, and they, you know, they start selling their program, and I'm aware of this, and I don't get enough because I'm like, oh yeah, I'll check into it when I've got, like, I legitimately want to buy the thing, and then I'm like, I'll do it later when I have time, because we're all so busy. And then I realize, this has happened to me 2 or 3 times, that the offer has ended, the cart has closed, and like, I didn't get enough emails. I was like, oh, they didn't like give me the like, hey, 10 minutes to do this thing. Get off your butt and do it. So you really are doing them a favor. It's so funny. We always go to like, it was too expensive. They didn't want to buy it. They didn't want to buy it. They don't want to pay for it.
So personal. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, we just got busy and forgot. You were on my list of things to do, and I forgot to pay you for this thing. Right. Yeah. So like, just keep that in mind.
We all had those moments. Where I forgot to pay you. I forgot to show up. I'm like, all of those things we just need extra reminders for. So it's as much for them as it is for you.
Your next tip is that you want to sell on the webinar. And so you kind of spoke about that before, but you were saying like, we don't want to do this bait and switch because it doesn't feel good. It feels icky, right?
Good. Yeah. And I sort of tried that in the beginning, and it felt like this, almost like this anticipation panic where you're like teaching. Oh man, I'm close to the slide that has the transition where I'm about to sell. Like, ugh. And then you're like hyper focused on if people are leaving. It's just a whole thing. So I start off the webinar. I'm like, oh my gosh, hello, welcome, you're here. And then I'm like, you're here for this. We're opening doors to that today. This is a party. Like, you are here to learn this thing. We are opening doors to the bigger program today. And then as I'm teaching, if I'm teaching a point on like a mindset point, I may say my client so-and-so also was struggling with this mindset issue. And after going through our program, like, I'm constantly talking about the club. I'm constantly talking about my program so that it is in the entire training.
I had taken like an actual like course on how to do a webinar, never followed through because I was freaked out about it. But that is sort of the old method. It was like, it's like a 45 or a 60-minute presentation. It's teach, sell. And it's like very nerve-wracking. Like, and I've been on these webinars where people just get like weird and like the whole energy changes.
I lovingly am just like, I feel like it's very bro. Like, it's very, the style of it was very, the webinar gurus of the past who that's how they set it up. And that was their style. And I think if that's your style, fine. But I can literally feel it in my chest of how it would feel versus now it just feels so much lighter. I'm like, they know what they're here for. I know why I'm here. It's a collective. Like, we all are in this together, and it just feels so much easier, and I'm not dreading it. But I would say, to that point, you do want to make sure when you are truly transitioning from teaching to pitching, even though you have mentioned the offer earlier on, you do want to make sure you leave lots and lots of time for that. So you don't want to just leave 10 or 15 minutes. I like to have enough time, maybe it is 10 to 15 minutes, to actually talk about the program and some case studies and things like that. But I like to leave a spacious amount of time for questions. Like, for example, if my webinars are an hour, I will block on my own calendar an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, just to talk, just to be there for the people who have questions, who may be nervous, who may be on the fence, who may not know what the heck I'm talking about, who may have to go to leadership and ask for approval, who, just like for me, we do a lot of board approval, stuff like that. I'm just making sure they have plenty of time to answer any questions that come in and answer commonly asked questions. And I find that that's helpful too, because again, I'm not like blowing through the offer and then like, okay, time's up, bye. And so it just feels easier.
That's really interesting, even from like thinking of like a marketing perspective and my own background, like designing websites. And we actually, when we build sales pages, we put a FAQ in there, frequently asked questions. And the point is not to actually answer their questions. It's to sell to them. It's to be an objection buster. And so you can go into that realizing that the person you're on the Q&A, the live Q&A, realizing that like that person might not purchase from you, but you never know who else is watching that they're being sold because you're answering this person's question.
That's right. And you can go through, if you have like kind of a shy chat or, just a quiet chat, you can go through and say, here are 5 of the most commonly asked questions. 1, how long is this program? And if you think you already said it, I promise you it didn't count. Like you may have said it on slide 47. This program's 12 months long. Stop it. Say it again. Like, because we know the program. They're just learning about it for the first time or know you a little bit. And so I think that repetition is also important, and we can get in our head about like, oh, I already said that. Yeah.
Well, and they're probably like scrolling on their phone and making coffee and they got the TV on in the background. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, you're not, I'm pretty sure we're usually not their only form of entertainment at the time.
That's right. We're multi. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any tips, like if that still feels uncomfortable? Like I think people just feel uncomfortable around selling, and this idea of bringing it up naturally throughout the course of the webinar, like how do you just weave that in? I
think the first thing is just shifting that I'm not apologizing about it. Like I'm not bearing that as a lead of like, we're opening up this program or this course today. And so instead, again, this is a little bit like the show up thing. Like this is a value to them. Had a course launch. So it's like, joining this course will literally save you time. So I'm excited about sharing that with you because it will help you. It will help you make money and save time. And so shifting how I'm thinking about it, I do a teaching section, a little recap of like today you've learned, and I'll like go through that. I will usually do a prompt. So if we're getting into the nitty gritty, like how we feeling? Are you glad you came? Something like that. I try and get them like, again, to your point, you guys doing dishes? What are we doing? Like, get back engaged with me because we're doing a transition now. So I'll do a check-in. How are we feeling? What questions are coming up? I'm trying to get the chat engaged. And then I will say, we're opening up doors. I'm going to tell you about my program, ABC.
I really like what you said about getting your mind right around selling. And since we're all coaches, we know that it comes down to mindset. So it's not really about the people that show up on the call. It's you getting your mind right about like, if you go in feeling icky, like, oh, I'm doing this hour-long sales session to sell them on this thing, right? It's going to feel really overwhelming. But if you're like, oh my God, this is going to change their lives. They need to know about this. Like, right? It's just a totally different energy.
Exactly. So you really want to think about that, do journaling or have some kind of power thoughts or something. So that can stay top of mind. Some other things that have come up for me, so I'm sure I'm not alone, is like, people will drop off. You will go from X number to Y number, especially during the transition. And sometimes it's like, I try and just not focus on that. So sometimes you can literally hide it, so that could be helpful. But also too, it's like, I'm always surprised and delighted by who joins. And very, very often, it's not who I thought, or they weren't on my radar, or who would book a sales call, or those type of things. So it's like, I just show up. My job is to show up and not go into those details of like, where did Julie go? Why did she log off early? Like those types of things. And instead go, keep the energy up, keep the optimism up all the way through.
Love that. Love that. So yeah, I think even if you need to like take the time beforehand to do some mindset work, maybe do some models ahead of time. Like if you're having a thought that's not serving you, do an intentional model before you get on that webinar. Hey, Super Bloom coaches, let's take a quick break. This episode is sponsored by my exclusive Luxury Brand Leader program. If you're serious about elevating your coaching business, then you have to check this out. Luxury Brand Leader is your chance to work with me one-on-one to totally transform your brand and realign your business for exponential growth. This is the only logo and website design program designed exclusively for coaches that builds your luxury brand and sets you up as the go-to leader you were born to be. Imagine a complete 360-degree luxury brand transformation done in just 90 days. You'll get personalized coaching, cutting-edge strategies, and the exact steps you need to become an unstoppable force in your industry. When you become a luxury brand leader, you can finally start to attract clients who daydream about working with you, and they're willing to pay the big bucks to make it happen. Imagine being able to unapologetically raise your rates, magnetize high-paying clients, create a captivating personal brand, and showcase your high-value expertise. expertise. Are you ready for a branding experience that will revolutionize how you show up in your business? Apply to become a luxury brand leader today at MoriahRiona.com. Remember, spots are limited and they fill up fast. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to transform your business. Apply now. So next you were going to tell me about the tech, and that is the part that has held me back for so long. And I know a lot of my listeners too, going on live and, maybe making a mistake and stuff like that can like freak people out. So let's go through sort of like the system that you use and then how you deal with any like technical issues or when stuff comes up.
Zoom is, I feel like, your best friend for this. For Zoom, you can do Zoom webinars, which is the type where the audience can't hear or see each other, if that makes sense, right? We've probably all been on that. And then there's Zoom meetings, which we're probably all more familiar with. That's where we can more engage with each other as a collective. I would say this, it is up to you if you want to structure, we're calling it webinar today, but you can structure your webinar as a meeting. And in fact, I do a lot. For my larger launches, I will structure it as a webinar simply because you don't want 72 people accidentally unmuting themselves, and that can get a little
yeah.
But if I'm doing like I did office hours, like after Giving Tuesday, if I'm doing a one-off, I'll set those up as meetings. And in fact, I like that sometimes because I can see the people on my list and on social that I haven't met them yet, and so it's nice to see them. So you get to choose Zoom webinars or Zoom meetings. You're going to set that up. I would say at this point now, our grandparents can do it, so we can do it. We're not allowed to say it's technically hard. We are allowed to say that like our mindset's getting in the way.
Sure,
right?
I love that. Yeah,
so
it's just a Zoom call. If I think about it, it's just a Zoom call.
That's all it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, with just more people on it. You're going to set that up. You're going to decide if you want slides or a whiteboard or talking head style. And you're going to create a simple opt-in page for this. So depending on like your CRM or email marketing tool, just something where people can sign up. So this could be a ConvertKit, a MailChimp, Kajabi, whatever you use. I have a friend who's close to breaking $1 million in her business. And it cracks me up because she still uses the Zoom has a natural, like you can sign up for a Zoom webinar using the Zoom template. And that's what she does. She uses a Zoom template, and I'm like, you get it. My brain is like, I need it to have a great vibe to it. And hers is like headline, subheadline, date, time, form. That's it.
Yeah. And she's about to hit $1 million. Right. Right. It's so great. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So
if I can stop you for just a second, I know you said people should choose what they want to do, but have you seen in your own experience a particular style convert better? Or do you think everything kind of works equally?
I think it depends on the style of the coach, if that makes sense. So I think there are some people where slides feel really sterile. So their style of teaching with slides may not have the energy around it. And they could actually like come to life with the ease of a flip chart, right? Or a whiteboard. I think that there is that person. For the most part, I think if we're starting this anew, slides are nice because as the coach, you can lean on those to give you're like, okay, got it. You can even have some notes in the slides if you need them. Slides are a great visual for people like me who are visual learners who like, ooh, let me see a little screenshot of what you're talking about there. Or let me see. So I like slides for that. I tend to, for my larger launches, I will do slides. And then I will do the pitch on slides again so they can see it. Sometimes I will stop sharing my screen. I will share the back end of my course portal. Or sometimes I will even just go talking head style where I'm like, all right, what questions do we have? And I'll just do that. But I do like slides.
What are the pieces that we need? Because we've got Zoom is going to be where we actually host it. We need a landing page, and we can use our email platform, or like a lot of my clients were on Show It. And so like really easy to make just a landing page there. You need the email platform so that it's sending all of these reminder emails. When do you recommend opening the registration to when the webinar happens?
Okay. I will do best case and I will do realistic. Best case is like a month in advance. It's like you can really warm up your audience. They can get ready for a big launch. You're really leaving a lot of breadcrumbs. Okay. Real life, 2 weeks, maybe even have I done it in a week? Yeah, I've done it in a week where I'm like, let's open this thing. So 2 weeks is also enough. So all of it kind of depends on your audience size too, is like, do you have a really engaged audience on social? Do you have a great email list? Are we emailing them enough? So I would say anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks is good, but 2 weeks would be a good way to start. And I think too, if you're just dipping your toe in it, it might even feel good to be like, I'm just going to do a webinar. I'm going to give myself a week in advance. I'm going to see who comes. I don't want thousands of people yet. Like, let's just get 25 people on there. And that might actually feel better than some big giant thing anyway.
So in that build up that we have, whatever, like the registration time or whatever, the tech that we need to make this happen is we've got the landing page where they're signing up, and then we've got the emails that are going out. Is there anything else that people need, or is that kind of...
you can do social posts if you're posting on Instagram or wherever.
Okay.
So you can do that. You've got your emails going out. You've got slides if you decide to do Canva slides or Google slides or something like that. And then while you're promoting your webinar sign up, you're also getting ready for the actual launch. So that's when you want to make sure if you have a sales page or some sort of checkout page that it's ready to go. If you're like me and do some sales calls, you want to open up your calendar to make sure that that's open. You want to make sure that the social images and follow-up emails. So like right after the webinar, you're going to wait for that webinar to process in Zoom, and you're going to send out a replay email for all the folks who didn't come live. So I like to have that one ready.
So like as soon as it's done processing, you send it out?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
Because people are like hyped for the day.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. And then talking about like the sales process, how long do you give yourself, if it's a cart open, cart closed situation, from the webinar to like, okay, like the timer's ending? Yes.
I think this depends on the offer and the audience. So I have done as short as maybe 5 days for a live launch, and I've done as long as like 2 weeks. My audience sometimes has to get leadership approval from like director or board or something like that to join. If you're doing a bunch of sales calls, you might also want a 2 weeks just so you can get enough bookings. But I have friends and clients who do more courses and easier kind of bite size, and a week. You could do a week long launch. So it depends. Yeah.
Do you think that we always need to have a cart closed, like so that there is this sense of urgency for them to purchase?
It depends on what it is. So if you're selling a course, a membership, a group, you have to be able to answer the question, why should I join now and not next month, next year, next quarter? And so sometimes that's the answer to that is because we ain't going to be open, right? Now's the time to join. But another way to do it, if you do want sort of more evergreen, all my programs are evergreen. And so I'm an evergreen proponent. So I can dial up urgency with a bonus. I can dial up urgency with a discount. I can dial up urgency in different ways. So you can do it that way. But I think during a launch, if you are doing a true webinar and you're pitching a program or a membership or a course, to have a date where at least something goes away is important. So price, bonus, or actual doors opening and closing.
Because people just don't take action.
I literally don't. I'm it. If you don't make me decide, I'm not going to.
Well, and we may love something, but without this sense of like, it's going away, there's no reason for us to follow through and it's not because of the price. It's not because we don't want to. It's because we've got a million other things going on, right?
That's right. If I can like just wait on that decision, I don't know, put it out. Like that's just the human brain.
So I would love to talk about sort of where you started with webinars and how they're going for you now, because it's pretty impressive.
I probably had, I don't know, maybe less than 20 people on my first webinar. I don't remember exactly, but I remember the feeling. The feeling was like one notch below panic, where I was like, I think there's something about webinars where you're like, is this all working? Because the minute you share your screen, you're like, can people even see this? What about the audio? What about the tech? What about my kids? What about the things? And so there's a lot of worries that happen. So I remember a lot of that anxiety. For me, it just went through I only got better at it through repetition, and the anxiety dialed way, way, way. Like it's almost gone completely. Now I may have a little anxiety or just nervousness on like, how's lunch going to go? But the actual liveness of it, I'm excited for. I'm like, oh, I get to see my people today. Like I'm excited. Who's going to be here? And so it just went, for me, it was repetition. And then also just talking to myself kindly when things like happened. Like I've had a webinar where I had a coughing fit. Like I'm talking like 20 minutes. I had a webinar where the power in the house got cut off. Like you start to learn that whatever your worst case scenario is, like you're going to be fine. Everyone will be fine. I've had webinars where the emails didn't go out and, the timing was off. There was a lag in deliverability. And so you just go, I'm okay. Everybody's okay. Like it's fine. And so now I've had webinars where there's thousands of people on. And for me, I love it because it's energy. Like I live in the space where I love the energy of it. And it just makes the whole thing so much more because you're getting that like real time feedback. So I will say like I've been through it all, and it has made me now as I like do more speaking and in-person stuff where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. I remember that 20-minute coughing fit that would look like I was losing my mind and my eyes were watering and it was like I lost my voice. It was crazy. And I'm like, that's fine. It's fine.
I really love, for all of our coaches listening, I want to go back to what you said. You had such a beautiful thought, and I think we could all use this before we get on the webinar. But you said, ooh, I get to see my people today. And like, that feels so good. So I feel like any of us listening who are like in panic mode, just like change your thought. Like that is such a beautiful thought to have before you get on.
I mean, it really is. And there are still times where I will host something and it will be a small turnout, right? As compared to sometimes the big ones. And it's easy to be like irritated or where is everybody or anything like that. But for me, I'm just like, oh no, they're here. They're right here. And like, now I can work with them on a more closer level or something like that. So it's like, no matter how many people show up, whether it's a lot or a little, no matter how the tech goes, whatever, you get to see your people today. And like, honestly, isn't that the thing we are all working towards anyway, is helping people?
I'm curious about your approach or your opinion on repurposing the content. Yeah. Do you do that? Do you record a webinar that's live and then put it on Evergreen or turn it into another form of content? Like, how do you use your webinars to get more bang for buck?
I do have like courses on Evergreen. So that means I have a pre-recorded webinar and a funnel that is automated. So you sign up for it anytime and you'll grab that webinar and then you'll get a limited time offer. So that exists. That's one use. I've had more recently this year, I've done where I'm doing webinars, free anythings, right? And I'm like, ooh, that was good. Let's put a portion of that on the podcast. So I've actually like sent my podcast manager, okay, the first half of this, let's put that on the podcast where I'm like, there's a reason why. Maybe I don't want it to be an hour long, or maybe I want them to sign up for the full thing, or maybe I just love this aspect as this being like more of a scalable thing. So I've done that before. We've used it for YouTube shorts. That's been good. Reels, things like that. So yeah, I would say the bigger thing is usually there's something where I'm like, ooh, that's good for the podcast. Let's use that.
Maybe you do a live webinar and 20 people show up and you might have this sense of disappointment, but like, I just would encourage you to keep going and go strong because like you said, like you can put it on Evergreen, hundreds, if not thousands of people could see it. You can turn it into all these other forms of content. So it's not like you're spending an hour with just 20 people. Potentially you could be that could be seen by thousands.
There was a webinar that I did maybe in 2021. It was a while ago, but I had these two amazing thought leaders, panelists on, and it was so good. And we probably had 300-400 people live. It was great. But it was something about it was like a moment in our sector. Like people, it just had a lot of life and longevity. So I took that and I popped it up as a Facebook ad, as an opt-in, like sign up. And it gave it so much more life. And it was all about ethical storytelling. So it was just so good. And it was such a good value that I ended up letting that ad run for at least a year or something like that. So yeah, you could even use it in that. It wasn't necessarily selling something, but it was list building.
You just gave me the perfect segue because what I have been dying to ask you about is using ads to fill your webinar. That's what you do, correct?
I run ads basically now year round. So yes. So I have a lead magnet ad that does really, really well. That's not for a webinar. It's for like a free guide.
Okay.
So that's rocking and rolling. And then like, as I'm preparing for a launch here in about 6 weeks, on my list is run ad for that. So yes, you absolutely can run ads for your webinar, 100%. I would just test out some creative for it and see what performs well. And yeah, you can run ads to the registration page. And then I'll offer like a free way to also do this would be if you have anyone who is a fellow coach, course creator, content creator, influencer online who has just like a natural, not same, but natural alignment, have them share it. Such a good. So if you're like a weight loss coach, then maybe somebody who's in like a yogi could share it, or somebody who's in wellness or health that's not doing the same thing, ask them to share it. Make them some IG story graphics and ask them to share it. I mean, and then if you want to go into full affiliates, you absolutely can, but you don't have to. I had somebody on Monday book a call with me, and it ended up just being like a Zoom coffee. She's in my sector. And at the end, she's like, well, send me some of your stuff. And I said, do you want to be an affiliate? She's like, no, I'll just share it. I was like, okay. So some people are like, no, I'm good. She was like, I'll pop it in my newsletter. I was like, perfect.
Do you use affiliates? Do you have an affiliate program
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. I would say that's a little bit more of an advance just because it's another layer of this process. Yeah. So all you're going to do for this whole thing is you've got your opt-in page for your webinar, and you will create, there's like Thrivecart, there's a lot of affiliate software out there. Your affiliates will each get a custom URL, and they will get credited for any lead that opts into that webinar and then buys your product.
So an affiliate is someone who is promoting your product, your offer on your behalf, and then they basically make a commission off of the sale.
If there's one person too that's like comes to mind, you could just even say, here, one person could be your affiliate. So you don't even have to go big. But yeah, that is a good way.
I am a prolific content creator.
Yeah.
I just got a email this week that it was like, congratulations, your YouTube channel is 6 years old. And I didn't even know, right?
Wow.
And it's like, I do weekly videos, and now it's turned into podcasts and all that. And like, I'm not intimidated anymore about being on video. I used to be very intimidated, but like going live has always been so scary to me. I love editing it, making it perfect before it goes out in the world. So I had scheduled my very first live Instagram live this week, and we were getting all prepped, and 5 minutes before, we couldn't get the live to work, and it was when there was a massive Instagram outage. And my assistant Sydney and I were like, did we just break the internet? So I was like, how does this happen that I've waited 10 years to go live, and when I finally pull the trigger, Instagram won't let me?
I think another way I dipped my toe in this, around the same time I started doing webinars, but before I had my podcast, I would do IG lives, and I would bring on somebody. Okay. And I did a series of them. And I think it got me comfortable because the tech can be really clunky on IG. Right. It takes forever for your co-host to join. Maybe no one shows up, and the viewers. And I think it really helped me release, I was like, we'll just see what happens. And it helped me go with creating content on the go of like, this is imperfect. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to try again.
Oh, I'm going to. We've already got it scheduled for next week. So fingers crossed there's not another outage. But you've got me really excited to not just do that, but to get into webinars. I'm already like in my mind like, oh, this can turn into a webinar, and I can do a webinar for this. I so appreciate you not only coming on and sharing like so much knowledge with us so that we really have, the power now to go out and make a webinar, but also just like making it feel doable. Like it just, like you have just made it feel like, it's just not a big deal. Like you just do it. So like that is helping me a lot too. So thank you.
It really is one of those things where it's like, it can be as simple as, or as complex as we want it to be. So let it be simple.
Yes. Let it be simple. Yeah. I love
let
that.
Let it be fun. Yes.
I love that so much. Well, thank you so much, Christina. I know that people are going to want to follow you, check you out. So can you tell my listeners where they can check you out in the online world?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, I'm at Splendid Consulting, and I have a podcast as well, the Purpose and Profit Club podcast. Those are probably the two best ways. And my website is splendidatl.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Christina.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Super Bloom Coach, the podcast for life coaches ready to 10x their business. If you enjoyed today's episode, I know you'll love my free course, 5-Figure Clients, the secret to attracting high-ticket coaching clients. Inside, I'll show you how I went from attracting bargain hunter clients to exclusively booking clients at a 5-figure price point. If you're ready to start working with clients who understand the tremendous value you bring to the table and to stop working with clients who don't, then this course is for you. Over 4 days, you'll learn why offering a high ticket service is better for you and your client, how to craft your irresistible high ticket offer that practically sells itself, and the 2 things you need to convey in order to sell high ticket services. Also, how to position yourself as a luxury brand leader so you can charge a premium for your top-notch services. Sign up now at mariahriona.com/free-course and start attracting those high ticket clients today. Don't miss out on this valuable opportunity to elevate your coaching business. Get instant access to your first lesson. And before you go, make sure to subscribe to Super Bloom Coach so you never miss an episode. We've got some incredible content lined up to help you 10x your coaching business and achieve your dreams. If you found value in today's episode, can you do me a quick favor and leave a review? Your feedback helps me reach more coaches like you who are ready to elevate their business. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.